Right now, a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure marvel is being ripped out of the ground. It was funded by taxpayers, engineered to survive a nuclear strike, and it is arguably the most resilient communications network in modern human history. Yet, it is being quietly destroyed, for scrap metal and for private profit.
Welcome back to Learning with Pratik. If you're new here, I try to increase neuroplasticity by exploring a new topic every day. I do all the reading and researching so you don't have to. Today, we are looking at the unseen infrastructure unraveling right beneath our feet and why the end of the traditional landline is a much bigger story than just changing technology.
Chapter 1. The Silent Copper Shutdown. By the year 2029, AT&T and other major telecom carriers plan to completely eliminate traditional copper landlines across almost all of their U.S. territories. And this isn't just some natural phase-out because people stop using them. It's a highly aggressive, calculated shutdown, pushed heavily by the FCC's 2019 Order 1972, which basically let telecoms off the hook for maintaining legacy infrastructure. But here's the massive contradiction nobody's really talking about. The FCC is fast-tracking this, totally bypassing state regulations and public debate. But remember the 1990s? Americans actually already paid for the fiber optic network that was supposed to replace this copper. Billions of tax dollars were collected for a network that was never fully built. And now, telecom giants are essentially profiting twice. They're pulling up millions of miles of our copper to sell us highly lucrative scrap metal, and they're selling off the massive downtown brick buildings that used to hold all the switching equipment.
Chapter 2. A Marvel of Engineering.
To really get what we're losing in this explainer, we have to look past the pure nostalgia of the old corded phone hanging in your kitchen. We need to look at POTS, the plain old telephone service, as an absolute physical and intellectual engineering masterpiece. 99.999%. In the telecom world, that's known as the legendary 5 nines of uptime. To put that into perspective, that is just 5 minutes of unplanned downtime for the entire year. That wasn't a happy accident. This level of legendary reliability came from dedicated circuits and hardened, deliberately over-engineered physical infrastructure. During the Cold War, these central offices were built with nuclear contingencies in mind. They were literally designed to survive the absolute worst days in American history.
And there is a stark technological contrast between that legacy copper network and the modern IP and fiber systems taking its place. The foundational magic of traditional copper was that it powered itself. When you picked up a landline, it drew a low-voltage DC current straight from centralized battery banks and massive generators maintained by the phone company. But modern voice-over IP and fiber networks, they rely 100% on your home's local electricity. So we're taking a system built to survive the Cold War and replacing it with a box that goes totally dead if someone trips the circuit breaker in your hallway.
The real kicker here is the deterministic simplicity of the old network. Think about this. A physical analog network installed in the 1940s could run for 80 years. 0 firmware updates, 0 cyber threats. When you made a call, a physical connection was made, or you got a busy tone. Simple as that. Today's IP networks, though, are probabilistic by design. Your voice gets chopped up into tiny data packets and sent over shared infrastructure. That means they are vulnerable to network congestion, packet loss, jitter, and constant software bugs. Basically, we are trading a tactile decades-long physical lifespan for endless cycles of digital patching.
Chapter 3. The Public Utility Bargain. You see, the legacy landline wasn't just a commercial product you bought at the store. It was born from a very specific, historic political bargain between private industry and the U.S. government. For decades, telecom policy relied entirely on this deal. In the early 20th century, AT&T's Theodore Vail pushed a philosophy of one system, universal service. That led to the 1913 Kingsbury Commitment, which basically secured AT&T's monopoly, but with some major strings attached. They got the exclusive right to own the network, but in exchange, they had to serve everybody. Fast forward to today, and we're watching the end of this timeline, where that century-old bargain is being formally tossed out the window in favor of corporate deregulation.
That historical obligation was actually cemented into law with the 1934 Communications Act. It officially designated telephone companies as common carriers. This meant they had a strict legal duty to provide services to the public upon reasonable request, without any discrimination. Their only job was the neutral transportation of your voice. They didn't filter it, they didn't analyze it, they just completed the call. This legal framework is exactly what made the copper network a true, universal public utility, rather than just some private subscription service.
Chapter 4. When the Power Fails.
So what happens when we abandon that public utility framework? We have to look at the real-world consequences of trading rock-solid architecture for fragile digital convenience. And sadly, we actually have a catastrophic real-world stress test that proves this difference, the morning of September 11th, 2001. Under unimaginable conditions, the copper network failed exactly like a physical road fails. Locally, if a cable was physically severed in Lower Manhattan, service dropped right there. But a few blocks away, the dial tone still worked perfectly. The cellular network, on the other hand, collapsed systemically. As hundreds of millions of people desperately reached for their cell phones at the exact same time, the shared capacity of the wireless network just drained. People in cities hundreds of miles away with zero physical damage couldn't get a signal because a packet switch network collapses entirely at the exact point of maximum shared need.
This creates a profoundly scary reality, because modern fiber optic connections require your home's local power to function. When the grid dies, say during a hurricane, a massive wildfire, or a winter storm, your connection to emergency services dies right alongside it. The life-saving obligation of providing backup emergency power has been quietly transferred from multi-billion-dollar telecom giants directly to you, the unaware consumer. If you don't buy and maintain your own battery backups, you are literally on your own in the dark.
Chapter 5. Who is keeping the cord?
Now, recent data shows that about 78% of U.S. households have gone completely wireless. But that means there are still tens of millions of people and massive critical systems being left incredibly vulnerable by this silent transition. Right now, states like New York, Massachusetts, and New Jersey lead the nation in landline retention. Nationwide, around 55 million Americans still rely on this technology as a trusted, tactile lifeline. That includes over 40% of senior citizens. This is a massive group of users who depend on the absolute simplicity and guaranteed reliability of a corded phone when they absolutely need to reach the outside world.
But this goes way beyond just residential users. There is a hidden, critical commercial infrastructure out there that is 100% dependent on copper. We're talking about NFPA 72 compliant fire alarm panels, emergency phones inside elevators, security entry gates, and vital healthcare fax machines required for medical compliance. Right now, as we speak, commercial properties are failing routine safety inspections because their telecom providers are quietly turning off their copper lines completely without warning.
Industry expert Ed Finneran hit the nail on the head regarding this danger, stating, "We've seen properties where everything looked fine until someone tested the elevator phone and found out the copper line had quietly failed weeks ago. This is not just a minor inconvenience, folks. It is a massive liability and a very real-life safety risk. There is an urgent, non-negotiable need for businesses and property managers to find modern, compliant replacement systems before an emergency actually strikes."
Which leaves us with a critical underlying question to end this explainer. What happens to us when the needs of private profit officially overtake the obligations of public infrastructure? By allowing this silent shutdown, we're actively sacrificing the most robust, reliable, self-sustaining communication grid we have ever built. We are trading a guaranteed public utility for a commercially fragile convenience. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, especially if you have something particular in mind. Thanks for watching. Tomorrow, we open a different page. Until then, Pratik, out.